Right, so here we are with part 3 of the buck knife versus the buck clone. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take these knives. Right now they're both, I don't really have much hair left. They're both shaving sharp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dull them on this stone and then see how quickly I can resharpen them to where they'll give a nice clean slice on phone book paper, and also see if by that point they're also shaving sharp. So first thing we gotta do is rough up the buck till it isn't sharp enough to clean the slice paper. Let's grab a piece of paper. Alright, so here we go. So that is no longer slicing. Now we're going to do the clone. Okay, they're about the same. Now, edge is gone and edge is gone. All right, so now what I'm going to do is sharpen them. Normally what I do is I do these sharpenings in 2-minute pieces, and I will sharpen for a minute on one side, a minute on the other, stop the time, clean off the edge, see if it's paper slicing sharp, and if it's not, then I continue. But where these knives are of a lower performing steel, I'm going to do this in 30-second sprints and see if I can get this to go. So I'm going to start with the clone first. Okay, 30 seconds. Clean the crap off. Let's see here. And there are parts of the knife that are shaving. It's not the whole edge, but it's probably about 90% of the edge is. That's it. So 3 minutes. It feels even better. Shaving clean. 3 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now the buck is a little bit harder in its metal, I think, and is also a little more durable metal, so it might take about the same amount of time. So we are gonna go, and so gonna do. I'm just gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna do 30-second sprints, just stick to the same thing. Okay, so let's take a look. So There we go. 3.5 minutes. And there's hardly anywhere left on my legs left to shave. But it looks like I can shave, so I'm gonna call it right there. Stay tuned, I'm gonna make a lot of comments, then if you're a lover of buck knives, you may hate the things I'm about to say. Alright, so in conclusion, in comparing the buck and the buck clone, the buck clone, I did an edge retention test with it, and the footage is kind of boring, so I'm not going to make a whole video out of it. But in the cutting test between the buck and the clone, I cut 1 inch twists of rope, both knives, with the factory edges. Factory edge on the buck stopped shaving entirely at 7 passes. The factory edge on the clone stopped at, what was it, at 3 passes. So twice the edge retention. In sharpening time, this knife took 3 minutes. So the clone took 3 minutes, the buck took 3.5. So you got to weigh those things, you know, twice as long edge, 30 seconds less time sharpening. $70 out of your pocket, $20 out of your pocket. So that's, you know, all things, you know, that are worth considering. I now come to the part of the video where I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate. Now, a lot of people out there really love the buck knife, and if you're the kind of person who loves the buck knife as a statement piece where it's about the history of the product and how long it's been around, the nostalgia, I respect that. I really do. But there was a lot of comments on the last video that I am going to address. And please keep in mind here, I am just trying to bring light to the buck knives. Nothing that I'm saying here is meant to insult the buck knife company, but just deliver honesty. So here's some of the comments that were said that I feel like should be addressed because it's part of the mythology that a lot of people believe about the buck knife company and the buck 119 especially. Now, this is a beautiful knife. I do admit it. It is a beautiful knife. I think it looks good. I think it's pretty awesome. And there is a version of it that's a superior steel than the one that's the most common, which this is a 420. There's one in S30BN, I think, and if you're gonna get one of these, get that instead, in my opinion. Here's some of the comments that I wanted to address. The buck 119 is made the same way for over 75 years. No, it is not. This is very different from the knives that they were even producing in the 70s. The knives that they were producing in the 70s, the dog head was more rounded down here, not square. I actually like that. The swells in the handle, first of all, I don't like them. I don't like them on this knife. But the swells were different at that point in time. I don't know exactly how much different, but they are a different shape. Along with that, there was an additional spacer between the phenolic plastic and the guard. The steel back then, it was 440 carbon steel. 440 stainless steel. This knife is 420. 440 ain't that great. It's not terrible, but it ain't that great. But this is a step down. Beyond that, some of the other features in the blade were also a little bit different. Certain angles, certain curves. The heat treatment wasn't always done by who does it now. So a lot of things have changed, as well as the fact that a lot of buck knives are made overseas. They're not all made in the USA. It's an American classic hunting knife, correct. It is the first hunting knife of its kind. Design and style. No, it is not. This design and style of knife existed in the late 1800s, and plenty of people carried a knife similar to this. Other companies even had knives like this in the early 1900s. So no, buck did not come up with this design. And the people who made that design took inspiration and even stole things from designs before that. So no, this is not the first of its kind in design and style. Let's see here. After it was designed, it competed against a similar knife design made by K-Bar for the U.S. Marines. Personally, since the Buck 118 came out 2 years before, so K-Bar, believe K-Bar stole the designs and made slight changes to its looks. Well, Buck stole the knife from somebody else, and the K-Bar knife, at least as we know it now, and it's the most common design. When you go to the store and you see the K-Bar with the leather stacked handle, it's the most common design. However, the K-Bar came in many flavors. There were people that carried the Buck 119 when it was made of 440 stainless on some in some military operations. Now, in my opinion, the K-bar is the superior knife for a military application. The reason why is because the 1095 steel is more durable, and back in the day, there was a couple different metals that it could be made out of, and some of them were even superior to 1095, in my opinion. Now, it's different. It's a different grind. Just like this knife, other knives existed before. Everybody steals from everybody, it seems like, because knives have been around a really long time. Can't beat a buck? Absolutely, I can. And here's why I'm saying that. So the buck, $70, cheapest $45 you can find it for, versus a knife that I make out of CPM 154 CM. Now this knife's dirty because I've been using it a lot, but this knife right here and the ones that I sell on my website, to give you a comparison, $100, so less than double the price. But in a rope cutting test, this made it through 7 inches. I've twisted this rope before it completely stopped shaving. This made it through 250 passes on the 3/4 inch. So you divide that, or you take that and you figure it out into a 1 inch comparison, and you're looking at well over 100 passes. I don't have the math off on hand right now, but yeah, you're going to get more than 10 times the knife at less than double the price. And in sharpening time, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 4 minutes to bring a shaving edge back. As well as the fact that on the stone, it took a while to get this thing dull. It took 15 seconds to get this thing dull. So, beat a buck, I can. And many other company knives I can beat too. Made in the USA, sometimes. Not all their products are made in the USA, and there's an online chart where you can look up all that stuff. And made from good old-fashioned stainless steel. That's okay. There's a problem with that statement, and here's the problem. When you say made from good old-fashioned stainless steel is a term that encompasses thousands of types of steel. Every company, especially a lot of companies that manufacture out of China, will come up with new blends of steel or just rename steels because they treated it slightly differently. But the stuff they're using now in buck knives isn't even the same as what they were using in the 70s. So good old-fashioned stainless steel, yeah, not so much. And there's a world of difference between a steel like 420 or 440 and something like L Max or something like that. There's a world of jump. And when you get those knives from a person who has heat treated them correctly, they are worth every penny, because the reason why, in my opinion, my knife is a better deal than the buck is I can go out on the mountain, and as a one-man operation, I can skin out an entire bull elk and cut them all up and have it all in the truck, and I won't have to resharpen this knife not a single time. I might wipe it off on a piece of leather, but I don't have to resharpen it. I've been on one hunt with some other people. This was a couple years ago, and the primary knife man, because too many knives in one spot can get someone cut, and so all of us were, holding legs at certain angles and stuff like that, while one man ran a knife, and he brought his Buck 119. Had to sharpen it about 6 or 7 times along the way. So, I know some people want the buck because in their mind they're saying, oh, well, this is a much easier knife to sharpen than some $200 knife. In terms of sharpening time, the difference isn't going to be a whole lot. And on top of that, becoming better at sharpening would better serve you, because if you're in the mountains and you drop a fairly decent sized animal and you're cutting it all up and you're processing the meat and you're having to stop to resharpen the knife over and over and over again, you are wasting a lot of time that could have been saved with a knife that was better made. I feel like the original Mr. Buck, who made this design and started the company, had a huge passion for knives. I feel like over the generations, his kids and his kids have probably become less obsessed with the passion of the product and like money a lot more. And I believe that because some of the products that they make, in my opinion, are nonsensical. Now, I'm a very judgmental person, so maybe I'm just being overly critical on what's worthwhile and what's not. But that's my opinion of the Buck Knife Company and the Buck 119 itself. If you're going to get this, spend a couple extra bucks, get the S30V, because I guarantee it'll do better than the standard 420. One more comment. I'll read is Support the USA by Buck. Not really. There's a lot of manufacturing takes place overseas that you're going to be supporting as well. There's a lot of knife makers that live in the United States, and there's a lot of knife companies that are here in the United States, and everything they do is here. For instance, I'm in the United States. Not a single thing I do goes to anyone else. I am the only person who does everything. I set the handles, I heat treat the steel, I cut and shape and sharpen and polish. It is me 100%. Buying from me is supporting the USA. But buying from a company like Buck, you are sending a couple bucks overseas too. I'm not going to comment on whether I think that is right or wrong, just addressing the comment there. Although I do think that it's good to buy domestically because you create jobs within your own country, and I'm all for that. Outside of that, that's about all the comments I have. To the people who are lovers of buck, I agree the buck knife is beautiful. You look at it and it just looks like something your grandpa might have carried, or maybe something from an old vintage hunting magazine the man would have on his hip. It's a good looking knife, but I feel like if I'm sending out my harshest criticism, there's a lot more I could say about this knife in particular on why I'm not personally a super huge fan and why I do like my knives a bit more. I will say that in the hand, though, it is more comfortable than the S90V Saddle Mountain Skinner, because this knife is, in my opinion, is quite uncomfortable. But anyways, feel free to argue with me down below. I am not intending to insult anybody here, but I am just trying to share the reality of buck knives and what they are, because I see a lot of people who say amazing things about the buck, and I just feel like their knife experience must be very limited to only the cheap side of the market and kind of the lower quality side of the market. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy.